Yo, what's up everybody? This is International Master Daniel Rensch. This is Chess.com. This is a live sessions. We quickly have what I thought would be a French, although d6 on move 2 makes this some sort of hyper-modern. Now with the extended d5, black has essentially lost time in having this French pawn structure, so I will happily extend and be grateful for the center that he has given me. Retreating this knight here so that I have strong control over the d4 square. Now I have two knights supporting each other instead of sort of fighting over squares. Potentially, I guess my plan should be to castle and try to develop some sort of initiative on the king side. There's also ideas of maybe grabbing control of the dark squares. This move a6 was a good one that keeps my knight here out of b5. So maybe I can play b3 and put a bishop on that diagonal. Either that or I should try something maybe a little bit slower, try to relocate this bishop around to these dark squares on the king side, hopefully launching an attack that way. I'll put a rook on c1 for prophylactic measures, preventing counterplay. On the queen side, it's very difficult for him to use the c-file or organize b4 now, when you consider that I've pretty much prevented b4 for all time and space. Now he's activating his knight. That's a good move. I'm going to try to put my queen on e2 next and threaten to just go grab that guy, maybe pick up a pawn. Potentially could have taken it last move, but after doubling the pawns, I would have had to move this knight, and I thought the d-file might come under fire. It was my very quick evaluation. As you see, I'm playing pretty quickly, so a lot of this is based on my first intuition, first intuitive thought. That's what blitz chess is, right? That's why we love it. A wild ride, not much time to think about the mistakes you've made. I wish we had that rule for life, right? Anyway, blitz life, right? Blitz for life, that would be fun. Now I could play knight to g5, and if he takes, I can take, and if he doesn't, maybe I can come after e6, so maybe I should take on e4, and after he takes with the pawn, play knight g5, threatening this and taking there. It's kind of interesting, right? I guess we'll do it. It's sort of an awkward decision to make here, opening up the diagonal for his bad bishop on b7, but I'm kind of greedy. I'm in a greedy mood. I want that pawn on e4. If he's going to give it to me, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take and bake, as they say. Now, that was a strong move, attacking my bishop on h4, so I should probably retreat that guy without actually giving him the chance to take with a pawn on f5 with his knight, so then this pawn would really be strong. So now I'm still threatening to take the e4 pawn, which has got to be irritating for him. It's very double-edged, though. I'm fully aware that it will be double-edged for the rest of the game as I'm opening up this bishop against my own king. I have 1 minute and 45 seconds. My opponent has 2 minutes and 10 seconds, so that's not so good for me either. Well, let's see here. He still wants to take on d4, but I still don't want to give him anything. I want that pawn if I can get it. So if he's going to trade queens, we'll let him go ahead and take, and I'll pre-move capture with the rook. Remember, kids, always pre-move capture. So if he took, I would have taken back with the rook. I'm going to do the same. Okay, and he took on d4, decided not to take on e2 and take my queen. But if I take on e4, he can trade queens and then take on d4. Wow, this guy's awfully tricky, is he not? Awfully tricky he's being. That's a pretty good move. So I need to, again, deal with an immediate threat. He's creating threats. There was a tactic there to take advantage of my rook on c1. Potentially, when we review this game, I will show you exactly what I was talking about if you did not see the tactic clearly. I have 1 minute and 13 seconds, with my opponent having 1 minute and 50 seconds. So still up on time. He is. I pre-moved capture, figure he didn't want to let me put my knight on d6, so I'm happy to have a chance to be better in the endgame now. Up a pawn, but my winning chances may be minimal. If he can successfully blockade my c-pawn, I don't have much else going for me in this position. So I'm going to prepare to potentially activate my king here. He goes ahead and pins the bishop on d4. Interesting decision. I have to make a decision quickly with only 57 seconds. I will bring my king up here and activate it once again. I like to bring it to potentially f3. Maybe not. Maybe I'll put this rook on e3. He's going to try to trade off my bishop. So I have to be ready for this. And then he's going to go after my c3 pawn once he trades off the bishop on d4 with this move bishop c5 I expect him to play. I have 45 seconds. He has 1.5 minutes. So we'll quickly play rook to d1. If he takes, we will take back with the pawn. If he checks, we will block with the rook. And then I'm going to try to organize d5. Try to get a breakthrough here with d5. That's my idea. He makes the right decision not to, most likely. I need to get his rook off the 7th rank, so I'm gonna do that. Oops, that was a mistake. Letting his rook come behind my pawn. I now am going to have trouble. But if he trades into a king and pawn ending, we will obviously be happy, however that looks. If he takes on e2, I'll take his rook on d3. If he takes the e3 rook, I'll take with the king. As you saw, I pre-moved. Okay, so he moved. Let's play this move g3, save our pawn on the 2nd rank. Again, if he takes, we will take right back. Again, we're still winning in the king and pawn ending. I have 40 seconds right now. Go ahead and take that pawn. Don't have much time to really debate anything else. I'll take and put my king on e4. I want to play rook d3 and try to get d5. Not going to be easy. Not going to be easy at all. We are fully aware of this. But I'm going to go after that pawn on f7 if I can. No soup for you. Get out of my house. I'm not letting you take that pawn. Nice try. Okay, but now we get our rook to the 7th rank. Potentially we can play h5 and create a passed h-pawn here. And if we can do that, then maybe we can get the f-pawn to break through as well. So let's see, I need to keep an eye on the d-pawn here. Perhaps that was a mistake. I'm not sure. Now he has to choose between the pawns. We'll see which one he chooses. Okay, he maybe made the wrong decision to let me keep my h-pawn. Kind of happy about that, but I'm still not sure I have really a lot of winning chances here, to be honest. But we have to keep trying, do we not? And now we can get in like Flynn, and potentially play king f6. Alright, we are making some progress here, people. Maybe we're going to win now with these two connected passers. I say maybe because I don't have a lot of time, with about 30 seconds left. Been moving as fast as I can, but he was lost regardless, and he missed that I was threatening checkmate on g8. Okay, so now we should back up and take a look, see what we can learn from this game, right? Besides the fast and furious entertainment of a live session, we can take a quick look. So, starts out with a French, potentially. I assume he wants to just play d5, and then he surprised me with the move d6. Realizing now how my opponent played it, d6 was probably a mouse slip, right? If you don't know what a mouse slip is, then why are you watching internet chess? No, I'm just kidding. That's not a you problem, that's just inexperience. A mouse slip is when you're potentially trying to make a one move, like I'm trying to go to d3, and I accidentally let it go on e2, right? And that happens from time to time, even in important games. So that's part of internet chess. Made a mouse slip, and considering that he very quickly played the move d5, getting a French structure, and definitely played it like a French, it's pretty obvious that he made a mouse slip with d6. So maybe I should play bishop g5 and develop my bishop outside the pawn structure, but decided there was no harm in just being aggressive like an Austrian structure, which is this f4, e4, and d4 pawns to really control a lot of squares in the center. The Austrian is a good approach against a lot of perks, and modern systems, so I just play f4 aggressively, d4, d5, e5 here, and probably I could take advantage of this extra tempo if I was playing a little bit more slowly with knight e2 immediately. And in this case, if knight e2, c5, I would get c3 immediately, so that if he took it as he did in the game, I could take back with the pawn, maintaining my solid pawn structure, which is a little bit more conducive to a good kingside attack. So if you're out there and you're wondering, these pawn structures here, with the e5 pawn being defended by the anchor on d4, is a little bit easier to be aggressive over here. So the advantage of having a piece on this square, well, let's talk about it in a second with the position we actually got. When I played knight to f3 and then knight c to e2, I got a piece on this square and supported it with c3. This is known as a wedge setup. Whenever you replace the middle of a pawn chain with a piece, usually either a knight or a bishop, as either a knight or a bishop are the ones capturing there, that's known as a wedge. You've wedged the piece in between the two pawns here. Now, a wedge can be an advantage in the sense that a piece does more than a pawn, right? A bishop on that square is more aggressive than a pawn, and a knight on that square is usually ideal because knights, unlike other pieces that really don't want to be blockaded, the knight sort of thrives in a blockade situation, as you probably know. So in this situation, the wedge is more conducive to being aggressive with the piece is more powerful, let's say, but the other thing is that it's very hard to play f5 because the pawn is not defended by another pawn. So, quickly summarizing, an advantage of a wedge is that the piece can do more. The disadvantage of the wedge is that it's harder to expand with a pawn storm because you don't have real support, and that kind of played a role in the game as we quickly developed, and I thought about attacking on the king side, but maybe I took the wrong choice here. when I saw the move g6, it should have been a heads-up play by me, like a sports term, to maybe play something like b3. And if he goes here, I'm like, slam, in your face. No getting out of the center for this king, right? Would have maybe been a little bit irritating, but the risk of that is I also weaken the c3 pawn on this file, so maybe that wouldn't have been the best idea. I castled, and we got a pretty normal-looking position. I tried for this plan of relocating, played some natural blitz moves, some prophylactic moves where we sort of play intuitively. As I said, I wish we could play with less consequences in life, right? Ha ha, very funny. Not a good joke, Danny. Anyway, king h1, knight c5, bishop b1. Now he puts this knight on e4, and this was strong. I mean, so this guy was a good player. Maybe on knight to c5 I missed a chance. Did I miss this tactic with knight takes b5? Immediately taking advantage of the undefended knight. If he takes back, I take here, and just like that, I've won a pawn. And maybe I win a second pawn if he's not careful. I have to be careful about discoveries myself on my undefended bishop, but I think I did, and I think that the missing of that tactic was critical in the game. It ruined my opportunity to just be clearly better, because he shouldn't have been able to establish this knight on e4 so easily. That really caused me problems, and I was able to outplay him anyway, but I'm not sure that with best play I would have been able to if he had played the best move. So that was sort of a mistake to miss my opportunity for a tactic here. And you see the reason why it works. For example, the reason why he can't take here is because his queen is hanging. So it's a little swish and zug, intermezzo. I quickly played bishop b1 instinctively, just wanting to keep my bishop and keep it on this diagonal. But again, I was missing a critical opportunity. Now he goes here with a tempo. And after I move the bishop, he makes some natural moves, and as I strive to get rid of this knight, he plays some really good moves. This is a strong move. I don't want to take it because he'll take, and then his knight comes into these squares. And after the knight f5 was a really strong move. Again, if I take it, he takes back with a pawn, anchoring in this really, really strong pawn on e4, which would be an issue. So as you can see, I have some issues. He's threatening to take here, and if I take, he can take here on c1 twice, and I have real back rank problems. He's also attacking the bishop, and so maybe there was a chance to take here and do something like e6, creating some dynamic play, but even with a move like f6 and I sink the knight in, I think now I'm going to be the one losing pawns and maybe a trapped pony on f7, so that may not have worked. And I think missing the tactical opportunity to punish knight to c5 was critical. So I had to play the move bishop f2. I kept thinking he might try something like e3 and sacrifice this pawn and use the dominant bishop on b7 for some counterplay, but it's hard because he doesn't quite have enough, right? He'd like to maybe sack this guy and play something like this to get me, but my knight is strong, and if he takes the knight, then, now without his strong knight, okay, the queen and bishop are powerful there, but is it enough, Probably not. So he, maybe made the right decision with a move like queen to c4, trying to trade. I defended. Then he brings another piece in. So the tactic I was referring to in the game is that if I take here, he can trade and then expose my undefended rook on c1 by taking advantage of the pinned pawn. You see that? That was the tactic that I referenced very quickly, so I couldn't do that. I played the move rook d1, which I think was a good one, kind of kills two birds with one stone, unpinning the pawn on c3 and defending the bishop. And now I think officially white is better because I am going to pick this guy off no matter what. So he trades and creates counterplay. Good idea. And I said even during the game I wasn't sure that with best play I could really win this. Bishop f8 is strong. He brings the rook to c4. That looks good. I thought he would go for things like bishop to c5 more quickly. My bishop is pinned to my rook. I have to play something like rook here. And then maybe he would have had this tactic, actually, taking advantage of my undefended rook on d1, and probably we did have a draw. So it's an equal position, but when you're the one who's better in an equal position, like they have to find the accurate moves to beat you, or draw you, then there's no shame in winning because they didn't really have the right approach. It means that in this position, I probably need to play a move like rook e3 right away, so that if he plays bishop c5, I can take it and it's not pinned. And for example, if takes, if I start defending the c pawn, I'm still not necessarily playing with a lot of winning chances here, but there's some play. Maybe I bring the king over and eventually try to swindle my way to a victory. But I didn't. I played the move king h2, which again, I think if he plays bishop c5, maybe that was his last chance to really draw. So he didn't. Instead, he played the move h5. I continued to activate. Once my rook was defended, bishop c5 is not the end of the world anymore. And he creates good counterplay here, getting rooks on the second rank, but okay, if he takes here, I take here. If he takes here, I take with the king. So he didn't quite have enough. If he takes here, I take here. He didn't quite have a clear way to draw. Again, there's an X-ray here. He can't take here because I get the rook, and so he tries to create practical counterplay, but sometimes you sack those pawns carelessly, thinking that it ruins their structure. But in an endgame, every pawn counts, so it's not always so simple. And here I wanted counterplay, so I didn't really care about the pawns, and the ability to create this passed h-pawn, I think, led to the win. Probably king h4 is a mistake. I can actually just play this move right away. And then after takes, king f6, which I quickly calculated and made a sort of superficial evaluation. I didn't want him to keep the h-pawn, but I see now that the threat of checkmate, along with winning this pawn, is pretty much enough to just be completely winning. So king to g5 would have been winning. I played king h4, kind of giving him a few more chances. Not a super easy win here, but when I have the chance to give up the h-pawn for the f-pawn, now the position is certainly lost for black. He can't really prevent king infiltration. And the game was over, red rover. So he missed checkmate, which just made it very quick. So that was an interesting one, huh? And fun live sessions with some time to really review and make it instructive. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you around.